Hello and welcome. You're watching Beyond World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look as to what is making headlines at this hour. At least 5 people have been killed and more than 700 others injured in a powerful explosion that has ripped through a vital port in southern Iran. Russia detains a man on suspicion of killing the Russian general, Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik, in a car blast in Moscow. The investigators claim that the detained man is a Ukrainian Special Services agent. The French President Emmanuel Macron says that Ukraine is ready for an unconditional ceasefire after what he calls a very positive exchange with the Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky. The American President Donald Trump sharply criticizes his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin for targeting civilians in Ukraine. He floats the possibility of fresh sanctions just a day after saying that Moscow and Kiev are very close to a peace deal. Now, the United States calls high-level talks with Iran to be positive and productive, while Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says the differences remain in the major issues as well as the details between the Iranian and the US sides. In the first response to the Jammu and Kashmir terror attack, the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says that Pakistan is open to any neutral, transparent and credible investigation, says the armed forces are ready to defend the country's sovereignty. A sword that belonged to the French Emperor Napoleon is set to be auctioned in Paris next month. The sword is likely to fetch as much as about $1.1 million when it goes under the hammer on the 22nd of May. And Pope Francis is laid to rest at the Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica following his historic funeral in the Vatican. He has become the first pope to be buried outside of the Vatican in over a century.
When you Google something, you expect facts, not fiction. But Google's AI feature might tell you to put glue on your pizza or explain the meaning of slap a goose. This is all thanks to AI Overview, a tool that's supposed to save you time, but might just leave you questioning reality. You may have noticed the new feature pop up above certain Google searches last May. According to Google, the feature will appear in Google search results when our systems determine that generative responses can be especially helpful. For example, when you want to quickly understand information from a range of sources, including information from across the web and Google's knowledge graph. But as social media users are pointing out, it seems to be making up definitions to random phrases or terms. Try a simple search of a random string of words and add the word meaning at the end. We tried milk the thunder meaning, which, according to AI Overview, is a metaphor that suggests using or exploiting a situation to one's advantage. But when you click the associated hyperlink claiming the source, the linked article mentions nothing about milking thunder and instead two separate phrases. The article called Weird English Phrases and Their Meaning by EF English Live lists steal someone's thunder and crying over spilt milk. Or one example from Wired highlighting a social media example, you can't lick a badger twice meaning, to which the AI Overview says is an idiom meaning you can't trick or deceive someone a second time after they've been tricked once. If this all sounds familiar, it's because Google faced a similar issue during the Super Bowl. Travel blogger Nate Hake pointed out errors in Google's 50 short ads highlighting small businesses, one from every state. In Wisconsin's ad, fittingly set in America's Dairyland, Google's Gemini chatbot helped a cheesemonger write a product description, claiming Gouda accounts for 50 to 60% of the world's cheese consumption. Hake fact-checked on X, saying Gemini provides no source, but that is just unequivocally false. Cheddar and mozzarella would like a word. According to Google, an AI hallucination is an incorrect or misleading result that an AI model can generate. Since models are trained on data, they learn to make predictions based on patterns, but the accuracy depends on the quality of that data. A Google exec replied to Hake saying, "Not a hallucination. Gemini is grounded in the web, and users can always check the results and references. In this case, multiple sites across the web include the 50 to 60% stat, but they did quietly re-edit those ads." Many Americans remain skeptical of AI, and these latest glitches could fuel their doubts. Edelman's 2025 Trust Barometer study shows while 72% of people in China trust AI, only 32% of Americans do. Edelman says some see AI as a force for progress, while others worry about its unintended consequences. And according to Tech Times, Google spokesperson Megan Farnsworth says their system attempts to offer context whenever it can, but nonsensical prompts are still likely to show up in AI overviews.
Iran and the United States are holding a third round of nuclear talks this weekend. The negotiations in Oman today are over Tehran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. Iran's foreign minister will meet with U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff. Both the U.S. and Iran have described previous talks as positive. This despite President Trump's threat of U.S. and Israeli military strikes against Iranian nuclear sites if Tehran fails to accept a deal.
بگو گازه بره بگو بره داره میترکه اوه 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 یا علی نترکه اینجا همه خارج شن
A massive explosion has shaken a port in southern Iran. The Shahid Raja'i port near Bandar Abbas was the site of this massive blast, and videos from the site show what appears to be this chemical fog rising in the air in the seconds before the explosion. Now, Iranian officials, as of Saturday night, are saying at least 5 people have been killed and over 700 others have been injured in this blast. Videos show car windows and windows in buildings blown out kilometers away and injured, flooding hospitals in the area. Now, Iran has said maybe caustic chemicals of some kind were involved in this. But what's interesting is a private security firm known as Ambry has linked this blast to Iran allegedly receiving ballistic missile fuel, chemicals to make that fuel from China. This was transferred to Iran a few weeks ago, and the firm says that this fuel was at the site of the port. Now, Iranian officials have not responded to that, but it does come as Iran has used a lot of its ballistic missile arsenal in attacks against Israel during the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip. So, as rescuers are still trying to reach the site and comb through the rubble, it remains unclear just the extent of the damage, but what is known is this was just a massive explosion that has shaken Iran.
Substantial from China.
Well, free up China, let us go in and work China because, frankly, that's what we wanted last time. We almost got it, and then they backed out of that deal. But we had it to go into China and to sell our product, sell our wares. In other words, it's called to open China. That would be great. That would be a big win. But I'm not even sure I'm going to ask for it because they don't want it open. They don't want it open.
On the immigration front,
Big thing are the tariffs. But because of tariffs, I could possibly get that. What do you think? Opening up China would be a big win, right? The problem is no matter how big the win is, the press will not give me credit for it. If I got the greatest win in history, they'll pay us trillions and trillions of dollars. They'll give us anything we want. The press will say, Trump, he just had a terrible defeat. He suffered a terrible defeat. But the people know. No, I think we're going to have a lot of big wins. I don't know if it's going to be covered that way by the fake news, but the wins are going to be very substantial. You know, we were losing with Biden, $5 billion a day. Think of that, $5 billion a day. I've got that number way down, and soon it's going to be very, very positive. We'll be making $5 billion a day, but we have a little ways to go yet.
And he was a tremendous help, both in the campaign and in what he's done with Doge. We're talking about almost $200 billion and rising fast, because many of the things that we were looking at are now being found out to be fact. It's terrible. He didn't need to do this. He did it. And I told him, I said, you know, whenever you're ready, I'd like to keep him for a long time, but whenever you're ready, he's an exceptional guy. I heard him say that he'll start easing, which is always, he was always at this time going to ease out.
Now to the latest on the war in Ukraine and the largest Russian attack on the country in nearly a year. Overnight, President Trump calling out Vladimir Putin, telling him to stop. It comes as negotiations continue to try and end the war in Ukraine. ABC's Nicole D'Antonio is in Washington with the details.
This morning, rescue operations are still underway after the deadliest attack on Ukraine in nearly a year. Russia launching deadly strikes on the country's capital city of Kyiv early Thursday, prompting President Trump to send Vladimir Putin a direct message on social media, asking him to stop.
I didn't like last night. I wasn't happy with it. And we're in the midst of talking peace, and missiles were fired.
The strikes come hours after President Trump criticized President Zelensky for rejecting a peace proposal that would force Ukraine to give up Crimea and other territories seized by Russia. Critics of the administration's plan say the deal heavily favors Russia and would also prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. Zelensky responding, saying, quote, there must be real pressure on Russia to stop this. Even in the midst of international diplomatic efforts to end the war, Russia continues killing civilians. That means Putin is not afraid. And going on to say, we will negotiate, we will not surrender. During an Oval Office meeting, Trump was asked about what concessions Russia would need to make after they invaded Ukraine.
Stopping the war, stopping taking the whole country. Pretty big concession.
In the eyes of President Zelensky, that would allow Russia to keep Ukrainian land it seized illegally when it started the war. The mayor of Kyiv declared today a day of mourning to honor the victims of the attack on the capital. Nicole D'Antonio, ABC News, Washington.
North Korea has unveiled a 5,000-ton destroyer named Chohyon that it claims is equipped with the most powerful weapons. The destroyer, built in about 400 days using domestic resources and technologies, is named after the anti-Japanese revolutionary Chohyon. It is the first in what North Korean authorities have described as a new class of heavily armed warships. The launch event, attended by Kim Jong-un, his daughter Joo-ae and other senior officials, was held at the Nampo dockyard. Kim Jong-un says that the destroyer will serve as a core component of North Korea's nuclear deterrent and blue water naval ambitions, further adding that this is a huge shift for the nation from a coastal defense posture to one that is capable of projecting power further afield. And according to reports, the warship is designed to operate a wide array of weapon systems, including anti-aircraft, anti-ship, anti-submarine and anti-ballistic missile capabilities. The ship also features a vertical launch system with around 82 missile tubes, placing it amongst the more heavily armed surface combatants. It also is equipped with the Pantsir-M naval air defense system for layered missile protection. The launch comes amidst Kim Jong-un's accusations that the US and South Korea are conducting aggressive military exercises that are aimed at North Korea. Now, experts are, however, questioning if North Korea could develop such advanced capabilities without foreign assistance.
미국이 계속하여 If the United States continues to renew its record in the protests of military power, we will have no choice but to renew it in the exercise of strategic deterrence.
Now, the American President Donald Trump, who met with Kim 3 times during his first administration, has said that he is in communication with Kim and intends to, quote, unquote, do something at some point.
تخبي علينا خوتي ليش؟